What's up, guys? So, basically, Reese and I kind of did a little breakdown of, all the alphabet belts that are in boxing. We kind of did like a little system to determine which one we thought was the best. And what did you think was going to be the best before?
I thought it was going to be WBO or IBF. Probably WBO. Just like thinking of like all the champions they've had and stuff recently. Like you got Crawford. Canelo's held that belt, and Golovkin's held it. Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz. You just have a lot of guys who've held that belt and beat good fighters to get that belt.
I thought it was going to be IBF. I feel like you don't ever really hear about controversy with the IBF belt.
No, you don't with the WBO either.
No,
the reason you don't with those two belts is because they don't have the ranking belts.
True.
And the interim belts.
True.
It's always one belt.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier.
And they're quick to strip you if you don't abide by the...
Yeah, because they only got one belt.
Yeah.
They can't give an interim belt.
Yeah.
And they don't want to confuse shit, which is good.
So, I don't know. I thought it would be I thought it was going to be IBF, and then WBO, then probably WBC and WBA coming up last.
It was kind of like total opposite of what happened.
Yeah, pretty much. We'll get to that. So, we did a little tally system. We'll explain how it works as we go. So, tell them the criteria.
Okay. It's like a 3-point system. You get 1 point for who the belt gets 1 point for who the person won it off of.
So, for example, Lomachenko is the champion, the IBF champion. The WBA champion, and he won that belt off of Linares.
Yeah, and you get a point because Linares is a notable top fighter.
Right.
Then we go see who Linares won the belt off of. If he won it off of someone that was notable, that's another point. And then we see who the fighter has been defending their belt against,
Since they won it,
or who they're scheduled to defend it against.
If they just won it.
And if the majority of their fights were against notable opponents, you get a full 3 points.
We said it had to be 50% of your title defenses had to be notable fighters. For example, Deontay said 10 title fights, and only 4 of them we count as relevant fighters.
Yeah, we were stuck on Gerald Washington. Like, he's kind of, at the time he was notable, but he had never really fought anybody.
And he was never ranked in the top 10 by Ring magazine ever.
No, that's true. So he's like 4.5. He's still.
So we'll get to that when we get to that.
And then if it was a vacant belt, so you obviously get a point for who you beat for beat for the belt. If it was 2 notable fighters fighting, yeah, it's a point. If it was just one guy fighting some random dude for the vacant belt and he beat him.
For example, Billy Joe Saunders beat
some guy we don't know the name of
for his WBO super middleweight belt.
That doesn't count. But when it was like
Gilberto Ramirez before that fought Arthur Abraham
for a vacant belt. That's 2 notable fighters right there.
Yeah.
So that would be a point because he beat Abraham for it. And then we go back to see who held the belt before that. So, if it was a notable fighter that held it,
like Terrence Crawford held the belt, we see who he beat.
We see who he beat. If he beat a notable fighter, that would have been 2 fights because that's essentially like who you won it off of. Who their last opponent was. So that'd be 2. And then once again, who you're defending it against or who you're scheduled to defend it against.
So what Reese is saying is, because there's so many weight divisions in boxing, a lot of times the lineage gets broken. Guys go up and down weight. So let's say Terrence Crawford has all the belts, and then he goes up to welterweight. The lineage on all the belts ends at Terrence Crawford. So there's a new lineage that starts. Right?
Yeah, and basically just wanted to see, since there's 4 major... Well, the ring belt essentially is the best belt. If you get given the ring belt,
you're the champ.
It's like you're the best in the division by like a consensus. But out of all like the major alphabet belts, we wanted to see which one holds the most weight really in the recent history of boxing. Because it's like when you look at other sports like NFL, there's only one champion. NBA 1 champion, the UFC they have 1 belt, but then again, there's Bellator and shit. But we just wanted to see which belt essentially is like the best belt in boxing, and which one would be like the real belt.
So do you want to tell the scores, or do you want to go through the divisions? How do you want to do it?
Up to you, man.
So yeah, like we said, we thought WBO and IBF were going to be the 2 best. What ended up happening was we did the lightweight, junior welter, welterweight, junior middleweight, middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight division. So really, we did every division from lightweight up,
We would have done cruiser, but
except for cruiser.
cruiser's tough because you had a unified undisputed champion, and then he just vacated all the belts like recently, and now there's still some belts that haven't been won, right?
I believe so.
So it's kind of just it's really tough to like. It would be fucking a nightmare to do that.
Yeah, it was tough to do junior welterweight. With
Yeah, because how Crawford vacated the belts, and we had to go back and see. Yeah,
but it was, we figured it out. Anyways, we had WBA in first place with 19 points, which surprised me. We had a tie at second with WBO and WBC with 18 points each, and then in third place IBF with 16.
and honestly, they're all really close. It's it's within 3 points. So they all do hold weight, obviously, which we knew that. Man, I don't even know if this would really even show like which one is the best because like it's so close that it doesn't really even matter.
I think if we did this every year, it would be different.
Yeah, like if you add it up over like a span of like if we were to go back in the history of boxing and do it for like the last 20 years, then we would really see what like historically the best belt would be, probably in like the recent history of boxing. But for right now, it's close. Looks like WBA has a slight edge.
That could change every fight, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. it could
Every
change
time a
every
belt is
single fight.
contested, that could change. So, like, that's what I'm saying. If we did this again 1 year from now, I bet you we have a different person in the lead. Or WBA is in the lead by more, but it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. There was only one belt that didn't get any points, and that was the WBC heavyweight belt. Because Deontay Wilder won it off of Romain Stavern, who was like, I guess at the time he was pretty good, but if you look back on it, like he was never like
He didn't beat nobody.
he didn't beat anybody really, and so we didn't give a point for that. And then he beat Chris Arreola for the belt, so we didn't give a point for that. No offense to Arreola, but at the best he ever was just a contender.
Yeah.
And then Deontay Wilder defended like
Pull up his title fences.
I like Wilder, and he's a very good fighter, but recently he's been defending it against some killers. But for like his
2018?
first 4 or 5 defenses, it's like, who was he fighting? Like, we don't even know who he was fighting.
In 2018, he was like he had a tough schedule.
That's the only one that didn't get any points.
So yeah, start from when he won the belt.
He won the belt in 2015 against Stavern. We didn't give a point for that, like I said. Stavern beat Arreola for a vacant belt, right?
Yeah. It was vacated by Vitaly Klitschko.
Yeah, so we didn't give a point for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you went back in time even longer, you'd get a point. You'd get some points for Vitaly, but we're not like that. Just
Too far.
because this belt wasn't the vacant.
Right.
This one was already held. And then he fought Eric Molina,
The drummer boy.
Johan Duhaupas,
Nope.
Arthur Spielka,
Nope.
Chris Arreola, who
No.
was, like I said, at most of his contender. Gerald Washington, he's like half. Like he's not like he's like half a point maybe. Romain Stavern again,
Definitely not at that point.
and then he fought Ortiz, Fury, and Brazil, and then he's fighting Ortiz again. So that's 4 out of his.
Is this scheduled, the Ortiz fight?
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4 out of his 10 defenses were essentially notable, and it was like his last 3 plus the one coming up. So you can't really. If your first like 5 or 6 defenses are against nobodies, no, you're not getting recognized for that.
No. But yeah, so that was the only one that got 0 points. I think that's pretty much it. The worst division overall was super middleweight with a combined 5 points with a maximum of 12.
Yeah, because it just doesn't look like they're fighting. Like the top fighters in that division really aren't they're not fighting each other.
Like, look at Caleb Plant, just defended his belt against Mike Lee, so that's no point. He won it off of Uzcategui, there's a point. And Uzcategui won it a vacant belt fighting Durrell, so that was a point. That was the only one that got 2 points in the division, actually. Everybody else got 1 point.
Yeah, that was the IBF belt, yeah.
Let's do one more, for example. Super middleweight, WBO. Billy Joe Saunders beat who we don't know. And then before that, it was vacated by Gilberto Ramirez, who beat Arthur Abraham. So there was one, and Billy Joe's defending his belt on the KSI Logan Paul undercard.
And they don't. My brother made a good point. They don't have that fight is in less than 2 months, and usually a fighter wants like at least an 8-week camp, or at least 8 weeks, notice. And they don't have another opponent for him. So obviously he's just going to be an opponent. It's not going to be somebody who's expected to even have a chance at winning.
Pathetic, man.
And Billy Joe, in my opinion, is not really a great fighter to begin with.
He's definitely not a super middleweight.
I heard Eddie Hearn say that Canelo's going to be his next fight or something. Well, sorry, Billy, but you might
He gets knocked out.
get put into retirement on that
He
one.
gets knocked out.
But,
anything else you want to say about that?
Middleweight had a real strong lineage for the most part.
The WBC.
Other than the WBO
WBC was.
and the IBF.
We were talking about some vintage shit, man. We had Miguel Cotto come up in conversation and Sergio Martinez.
Which the two best divisions for it looks like people competition fighters fighting fighters are lightweight and welterweight. Honestly, because they both had 11 out of 12 points. But honestly, man,
Which is weird because none of the welterweight champs fight each other.
yeah, it's just there's so many good fighters in that division that even if they don't fight each other,
The best, they're fighting good guys still.
but to me, yeah, it's whack though because Crawford, Spence doesn't seem to want to rush to make that Crawford fight because he knows he doesn't have to still have good names on his resume, which to me is pretty whack. I get you want to get that money fight with Pacquiao, but don't you also want to fight the guy that a lot of people saying he's going to beat you before you guys are out of your best, or before something happens? Maybe one of you gets in a war and you're not the same fighter again. I can't see that happening with Crawford. He's just going to starch everyone he fights. But I could see Spence getting into a war or something, maybe with Pacquiao or something.
Yeah.
He'll beat Pacquiao, but he's going to take a lot of shots.
Yeah, he's never
for
fought
the first 4 or 5 rounds.
He's never fought a southpaw, that elite of a southpaw, and then he's never fought someone with that kind of hand speed.
The Pacquiao fight, it's not like it's gonna go. It's not like it's gonna really go anywhere, man. I don't know. No one really wants to see that. People will watch it because it's Pacquiao, but
I mean,
fight the best fighters.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why a vacant belt, the vacant WBC belt, was fought for by Sean Porter and Danny Garcia when it could have been fought for by Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. To me, if there's a vacant belt, one of the 4 major belts, you take the top 2 guys in the division to fight for it. Why wouldn't that be how it works?
It's like they don't want 2 guys that already have belts to fight for. I don't get it.
It's just the best should be fighting for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I get that there's politics and it's hard to make some fights, but the governing bodies should make it a rule that if there's a vacant belt, the number 1 and 2 guys fight for it, and that belt isn't fought for until those 2 can make that fight happen. That should be the way it is, because then it forces one champion. It forces there to be one face of the division instead of a whole bunch of fucking guys.
Yeah. Pause for a second. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we covered everything. If you guys have any questions about the scoring system or anything about this, let us know in the comments, and we will definitely let you know how that worked again. I just want to touch on one thing you were saying about the Spence and Crawford situation. To be honest, Crawford won his belt off of Jeff Horn. Yeah, Jeff Horn is Jeff Horn.
It's not a big name, but
it's not a big name, but at the time that he beat him,
it was
he was a top welterweight. So that's a high caliber win.
You have to go by how they were at the time,
Exactly.
not how they are now.
And Spence won his belt off of Kell Brook, who had just got his face broken by Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah, Brook was not the same. He was still a very good fighter, but
He's never been the same.
He wasn't the same after he went up 2 weight divisions to fight that dude.
Look at the Brook that fought Porter to win his belt, and the Brook that fought Gennady Golovkin at middleweight, and compare that guy to the dude that fought Spence and has fought every
And
time
then Spence
since.
defended his belt against
Ocampo.
fucking who is Ocampo, and then he defended it against a guy who had never had a fight at the welterweight division before, and he had one fight at super lightweight, and he was basically a career featherweight
And below.
30 in lightweight.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can be like, oh, Spence's resume. His resume at what?
It's not good.
His resume is not that good. Lamont Peterson defended his belt against. Who
Lamont Peterson was way over the hill.
he wasn't a top 10
He had already been in
fighter.
tons of wars.
Tons of wars. He was like 36 or something. 36.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
just a name. It's literally, he beat him to get a name on his record. A name that doesn't hold weight when he beat him. If he beat him like 7 years ago, okay.
When Danny Garcia fought him,
Yeah.
it was legit. At which most people think Lamont won.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you got any other questions, let us know. We're out.
Peace.